Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Your Money Life podcast, episode 234 of the podcast. Make sure wherever you're listening, you like, subscribe, 5-star rate, and review this pod. We do this every week. And this week is a big week. We have a lot to go over. A lot just happened in the last week. Let's actually jump in to the markets straight away. That's the big news. Yesterday was one of the worst days in the market since 2022. And it's funny enough, in the last episode 233, we talked about the stock market breather and why that could be coming, why that is in the throes. We were in the throes of it. I felt it. I knew it. Part of the reasons why there's a little bit too much exuberance. Sometimes there's a breather coming when you see people that never talked about stocks before, people that shouldn't know about certain things, talking about stocks, not in a way that they shouldn't know, but they just have no interest, right? If your grandma started to give you stock tips, if your Uber driver started to give you stock tips, you know that is a time where things have gotten too overbought potentially in the near term. And so that's one of the reasons why we saw such a pullback yesterday. Let's actually look into why that was. There was a few reasons. I think a lot of it was um, the fact that we have a lot of geopolitical risk, political risk going on. We have a earnings for different companies that came in not as strong. Tesla, one of them. Tesla had some earnings that really this wasn't as strong as the market anticipated. We did see numbers that came out this morning about GDP, this morning being Thursday, and we actually grew at a 2.8% real gross domestic product grew at 2.8% on an annualized basis in the second quarter of 2024. That was way better than the estimate of 2.1%. So that was good data, but the rest of it, Ford shares tumbled, Ford Motors shares tumbled 13% after the company's second quarter earnings. Chipotle did do well. They topped earnings in the company. The shares moved up, but a lot of the airlines, American Airlines, Delta's having some trouble. Delta, of course, having some trouble since the CrowdStrike update bug that took down a good chunk of the internet last week, or that was last week. And so they're still having trouble. They've canceled over 5,000 flights. That's more flights than they canceled in 2019 and 2020 combined. So in a span of 5, 6 days, they've canceled more flights than they did in a 2-year period, which is crazy to think about. So Delta's been down. American Airlines cut their guidance for the rest of the year, so they're down. So a lot of companies are saying, "Hey, earnings isn't as good as we anticipated," and it's pretty much having investors take some off the table. A lot of investors took took some chips off the table yesterday. Let's look at the actual chart. Yesterday was a tough day again. 1 day move for the S&P 500, almost 3% down. It was 2.27% to be exact. On a 5-day basis, we're down. Again, year to date, we're still up. On a 6-month basis, still up. But again, that's what happens when you deal with the market. You are going to have some bumpy rides. It's not just straight up. This is a roller coaster. And so that's what we were talking about last week, and it's coming to fruition. And again, but that's just making sure that people understand why they're investing. If you're day trading or just buying things to think things are going to go up, you're probably not going to have a good time, especially in this kind of market. Let's get current news. We just talked about CrowdStrike. The outage could cost 5.4 billion. So remember, the CrowdStrike outage took down millions of computers last week. I wish I could tell you exactly what happened, but I really don't know. But there's, speculation, of course, that there was some bug enhancement, that they were enhanced a software update that they were doing that had a bug in it, which took down a lot of companies. So banking and healthcare companies are potentially going to be hit the worst. There's going to be one insurance company estimated that 5 billion will be owed by Fortune 500 companies. CrowdStrike said Wednesday, let's get what they said, that a buggy test software was to blame for the outage, which crashed more than 8.5 million Windows systems. That's Microsoft Windows systems. The company is vowing to improve testing of these updates, plus stagger the deployments of future updates to limit impact. Insured losses from the incident could range from 540 million to more than 1 billion. CrowdStrike, of course, did offer an apology, and I guess they offered $10 Uber gift cards to partners affected by the outage. $10 Uber gift cards. I think I already, is it like one coffee, $10? I guess you can get a coffee after this $5 billion outage that CrowdStrike has initiated. So yeah, that's just interesting news there. Well, that was a big news last week. That we are still there's still the ramifications of it. As I mentioned, Delta still canceling flights. A lot of people in Delta terminals still stuck. So it's not going away anytime soon. Let's take a look at NBA deal. So the NBA deal that we were talking about, they partnered. NBA has officially announced its broadcasting rights. They went with Disney, NBC Universal, and Amazon. So they took away Comcast, the TNT Warner lost their bid. I think they had a right of first refusal. So NBA could go to the market, see what people would buy, and then they had to come back to TNT Warner. That's what TNT Warner is saying, that they had a right of first refusal. But they didn't win the bid. So that means that the popular show with Charles, Shaq, and Kenny is no longer, unless they go to Amazon or one of these other streaming companies that has now taken over the NBA rights deal. So they'll see the companies pay more than 76 billion over 11 years. So 76 billion over 11 years to have the exclusive rights to stream, show, broadcast all the NBA games. The agreement, which began in 2025-26 season, included include both the NBA and an unprecedented number of WNBA games. So they have some WNBA games in there. The value is 2.5 times higher than the NBA's current agreements, per the New York Times. The league also rejected an offer from Warner Bros., of course, TNT, Discovery, to match Amazon's bid, ending the broadcast partnership with the TNT going back to the 1980s. Wow. So they've been with the NBA, Warner Bros. Discovery since the 1980s, and they just lost a bid. Huge loss for them. That's going to potentially crush that network. I don't know exactly what else Warner Bros. Discovery has. I mean, they have a lot, but that was huge. That was huge, and was one of the reasons why people tuned in. CEO of Amazon said, could it be more excited about the long-term agreement we just signed with the NBA? Starting the 25-26 season, Prime members will be able to stream an exciting slate of regular season games, the NBA Cup, which is the in-season tournament, the entire postseason play-in tournament, first and second round playoff games, and NBA conference finals every other season. They also expanded the partnership with the WNBA and will be streaming 30 regular season games annually, one third of the playoff games, and three WNBA finals over the 11 years. So what a good move by Amazon, good move by the streamers that got these rights. NBA is not going anywhere. These are rights that were heavily sought after, and the won by those streamers. So good for them, and not so great for Warner Bros. Discovery, and that could really, really hurt them. We just talked about the tech sell-off. LinkedIn had an article about it. People were worried about the rapid rise in shares of AI companies. So are they overbought? It spooked investors, sending the Nasdaq and S&P 500 to the worst day since 2022. The tech heavy Nasdaq shed 1 trillion, led lower Wednesday by declines in semiconductor companies such as Nvidia and Broadcom. The moves followed tepid earnings reports from Tesla and Alphabet, while some analysts see the sell-off as short-lived. Yeah, that's one thing. It could be short-lived. This is not saying we're going into some deep correction pullback. No, this is something that's rather common in the market. You don't just see things go straight up. If you look at the year to date, we've had pullbacks. If you remember in April, middle of April, we had pullback and we rebounded from that. Saw a little bit of a pullback again at the end of May. So this is, par for the course. You don't just go straight up, and this could be short-lived, but it's part of dealing with the market, and understanding what's going on. But people are going to sensationalize this and talk about it because the numbers sound big and buzzwordy, and 7 trillion and seven magnificent seven lost nearly true 2 trillion in market cap in 10 days, like all this stuff. But, don't worry about the day to day, to be honest. We just talked about the CrowdStrike debacle, and Delta is still dealing with it. It could cost them 500 million. Delta Airlines will probably take a $500 million hit from the flight fiasco that followed the CrowdStrike outage last week, according to analysts. There's still thousands of flight cancellation, even more delays that have dogged the airline since Friday, but they are easing. Delta faces a federal probe into how it treated passengers during the crisis. So a lot of things on Twitter, online, where that Delta was just not, the bags were lost, people weren't able to get anywhere, there was no communication, and that's not the great way to do this if you're an airline, especially when people are trying to get from place to place. They need to for work, for business, for family. So Citigroup analysts are citing potential customer compensation costs and operational expenses estimated at cut to profit of 500 million. The CEO of Delta said that the Wednesday that the cancellations would be minimal and service normal by Thursday. That would be today, I guess. And yeah, that's just again companies dealing with this. A lot of like negative news for companies this week. Even Ford Motors, their shares tumbled 13% after massive earnings miss. Ford came in short of Wall Street's second quarter earnings expectations. They beat on revenue, but they were really plagued with a customer demand that's kind of slowing. They increased its full year target for free cash flow, but maintained their outlook and guidance for 2024. This disappointed some investors who had hoped for a hike. Ford's guidance for the year includes adjusted earnings before interest and taxes of EBIT, which is EBIT of 10 billion to 12 million, 10 billion and 12 billion. So again, not great news for companies this year, excuse me, this so far this past week. But generally in the market overall, the economy overall, economic activity in the second quarter was actually stronger than expected. We talked about it. Real GDP, 2%, 2.8% at an annualized pace. And so that's good news generally. If you look at it, we're really just in a situation that's kind of funky, really. And we'll see what the market how the market does in the next few weeks, next few days. That's going to be really telling on where we sit if we're in a situation where it's a an actual prolonged correction or it's just kind of a blip in a bull market. So we'll watch our keep our eyes on that. In the meantime, let's go into the question of the week. I thought that we could go back and find some good ones. The first one being, how much does the average pet owning household spend on their pets each year? That's a good question for those that may be thinking about getting a pet. I've held that off. I'm not ready to do that. That's too much work that I don't want to do. I mean, I could do the work. I just don't want to do it. Why would I do something I don't want to do? But the answer is $1,400 a year on pets. So not crazy amount, not a crazy amount at all. $1,400. What are you spending if you have to spend per month? 116 bucks. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. If you love your pet, you'll do that. Let's go to another question. What is the average total cost to withdraw money from an out of network ATM? So a network ATM that's not in your network, that's not your bank or a partner bank that has the same network that allows you to use their ATM. I think it's probably $2.50, I would say. Oh, whoa, it's actually interesting. Out of network is going to cost you $4.73 if you're out of network. Do people still use cash? I don't like using cash. It's actually bothersome for me to use cash. I have Apple Pay, Apple Wallet, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, any of those things. I wire money all the time. But why would you use cash in this day and age? We don't know. Folks, we should be back on next week, 2 days prior to our wedding, which we're super excited about. A lot of family, friends, and great people coming into town for that. I hope to give an episode that week. We'll see if I do. I'll try to do two so you get the episode for that week. You also get the episode while I'm on vacation. And so that's going to be the plan. We'll see how it shakes out. But thank you, of course, for listening, and we will